The sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. I stood at the edge of the small fishing village I had called home my entire life. The air smelled of salt and seaweed, and the distant waves crashed against the rocky shore. "Ella, are you daydreaming again?" A familiar voice teased from behind me. I turned to see Heron, my best friend since childhood. His brown hair was messy from the sea breeze, and his ever-present grin made him look like he was always up to something. "I wasn't daydreaming," I said, crossing my arms. "Oh, really?" he said, raising an eyebrow, "because you've been standing there for at least an hour." I sighed, turning back to the horizon. "I just feel like there's more out there, Aaron. Beyond the sea, beyond this village. Don't you ever wonder what it would be like to explore?" Aaron chuckled. "Hella, you've been reading too many adventure stories. Real life isn't like that." "Maybe it isn't," I admitted, "but I can't help wondering." That night, as I was closing up the small shop my family owned, something unusual happened. A man burst through the door, soaking wet and breathing heavily. He looked like he had been in a storm, even though the night was calm. "Are you okay?" I asked, startled. He didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a small, weathered scroll and whispered, "Keep this safe. They'll come for it." Before I could ask who they were, he stumbled back outside and disappeared into the darkness. I unrolled the scroll carefully. It was a map, old, detailed, and unlike anything I had ever seen. It marked an island far beyond the known seas, with the words "The Heart of Valoria" scrawled at the top. "What is this?" I whispered to myself, tracing the lines of the map. The next morning, I showed the map to Aaron. "Let me get this straight," he said, leaning against the counter in the shop. "A random guy walks in, hands you a map, and tells you to keep it safe? That doesn't sound suspicious at all." I shrugged. "I know it sounds crazy," I said. "But look at it, Heron. This map leads to something important." Heron studied the map, his usual grin replaced by a look of curiosity. "The Heart of Valoria. Sounds like a treasure." "Exactly," I said, my excitement growing. "We could find it." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "We?" "Yes, we," I said firmly. "Come on, Heron. You've always said you wanted an adventure. This is our chance." He hesitated, then sighed. "All right. But if we get caught up in something dangerous, I'm blaming you." We set sail that very evening, borrowing one of the village fishing boats. The map was surprisingly detailed, guiding us through calm waters and past small islands. At first, it was exhilarating. The open sea stretched endlessly around us, and the sense of freedom was unlike anything I had ever felt. But as the days went on, the journey became harder. The wind grew colder, and the waves rougher. "Are we even going the right way?" Heron asked one night as we huddled in the small cabin of the boat. I unfolded the map, steadying it under the dim light of a lantern. "We're close. Just a little further." Heron sighed, leaning back against the wall. "I hope this treasure is worth it." "It's not just about the treasure," I said softly. "It's about proving that there's more out there, that we're capable of more." Aaron looked at me, his expression unreadable. "You've always believed in things bigger than yourself, Ella. That's what I've always liked about you." Aaron answered darkly. His words caught me off guard, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. The next day, we spotted land. "There it is," I shouted, pointing to the jagged outline of an island in the distance. Aaron steered the boat toward the shore, his face a mix of relief and determination. The island was unlike anything I had ever seen. Towering cliffs rose from the water, and lush greenery covered every inch of land. "This place is incredible," Aaron said as we stepped onto the rocky shore. Let's find the Heart of Valoria," I said, gripping the map tightly. We followed the map's directions through dense jungle and narrow paths. The air was thick with the scent of flowers and something else, something metallic like iron. "What's that smell?" Aaron asked, his voice tense. "I don't know," I said, my excitement giving way to unease. We reached a clearing, and in the center stood a massive stone archway. Strange symbols were carved into the stone, glowing faintly in the dim light. "This must be it," I said, my voice filled with awe. Aaron stepped closer, examining the archway. "It looks like it hasn't been touched in centuries." As we approached, the ground beneath us trembled slightly, and a deep, resonating hum filled the air. "I don't like this," Aaron said, taking a step back, but I couldn't turn away. Something about the archway felt alive, like it was calling to me. "We have to go through," I said, my heart pounding. "Ella, wait!" Aaron started, but it was too late. I stepped through the archway, and the world around me shifted. The moment I stepped through the archway, it felt like the air was pulled out of my lungs. The world around me blurred, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if I was falling or standing still. When the dizziness passed, I found myself in a completely different place. The jungle was gone. Instead, I stood in the middle of a massive stone chamber, its walls covered in glowing symbols that pulsed faintly, like they were alive. A faint golden light spilled from a pedestal in the center of the room. "Ella?" I turned to see Aaron stumbling through the archway behind me, his face pale and full of panic. "What just happened?" he demanded, looking around. "Where are we?" "I don't know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But look," I pointed to the pedestal, and his eyes followed my gaze. On the pedestal rested a crystal the size of my hand, glowing with an otherworldly light. Its surface seemed to ripple, as if it were made of liquid instead of solid stone. "That must be it," I said, taking a step closer. "The Heart of Valoria." Aaron grabbed my arm. "Wait, we don't know what this is or what it can do. Let's think for a second." "There's nothing to think about," I said, shaking him off. "This is what we came for." "Ella, listen to me," he said, his voice firm. "Things like this, they come with consequences. What if taking it sets off a trap? What if it's cursed?" His words made me hesitate, but the pull of the crystal was too strong. "We'll never know unless we try," I said softly. As I reached out to touch the crystal, the air around us grew heavier, charged with energy. "Ella, stop!" Aaron shouted, but it was too late. The moment my fingers brushed the crystal, a blinding light filled the chamber. I cried out, feeling a surge of energy rush through me, like fire coursing through my veins. When the light faded, I stumbled back, clutching the crystal in my hands. "Are you okay?" Heron asked, rushing to my side. I think so," I said, though my body trembled with the lingering energy. But before we could say anything else, the ground beneath us shook violently. The glowing symbols on the walls flared brighter, and a deep, guttural roar echoed through the chamber. "What was that?" I whispered, fear creeping into my voice. Aaron pulled me to my feet. "We need to get out of here, now." We ran back toward the archway, but the path was no longer the same. The walls shifted, closing off passages and creating new ones. It was like the entire chamber was alive, trying to trap us. "This way," Aaron shouted, pulling me down a narrow corridor. I clutched the crystal tightly, its warmth seeping into my hands. For a moment, I wondered if it was guiding us, leading us through the maze. Finally, we burst through an opening and found ourselves back in the jungle. The sky above was dark, filled with swirling clouds. The air crackled with electricity, and the storm that had been brewing earlier was now in full force. She answered, "This island isn't normal," Aaron said, his voice shaking. "We have to leave. Right now." I nodded, too shaken to argue. As we made our way back to the boat, the jungle seemed different. The trees were taller, their branches twisting unnaturally. Strange whispers floated on the wind, though there was no one around. "Do you hear that?" Aaron asked, glancing nervously over his shoulder. I nodded, gripping the crystal tighter. "It's like the island doesn't want us to leave." "Well, too bad," Aaron muttered. "We're leaving." But when we reached the shore, our boat was gone. "No, no, no," Aaron said, running to the water's edge. "It was right here." "What do we do now?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. Aaron turned to me, his jaw tight. "We'll have to find another way off this island," he asked. As we searched the shoreline, we came across an old abandoned ship. Its hull was battered, and its sails were torn, but it looked seaworthy enough. "This is our best shot," Aaron said, climbing aboard. I followed him, my heart pounding. The crystal's light pulsed faintly, as if it were reacting to the ship. Once we set sail, the storm seemed to intensify. Waves crashed against the ship, and the wind howled, tearing at the sails. "Here we are." "Ella, hold on," Aaron shouted, steering the ship with all his strength. I clung to the mast, my knuckles white. The crystal's light grew brighter, and for a moment I thought I saw shapes in the storm, twisting, shadowy figures circling the ship. "What is that?" I yelled, pointing to the shadows. Aaron's face was grim. "The island doesn't want us to leave." As the storm reached its peak, the crystal in my hands began to hum. Its light flared, illuminating the shadows and sending them retreating into the darkness. "It's protecting us," I realized, my voice shaking. Aaron nodded, his grip on the wheel steady. "Then let's hope it keeps working." The storm raged on, but slowly the shadows faded, and the waves began to calm. By the time the sun rose, the island was nothing more than a distant speck on the horizon. "We made it," Aaron said, his voice filled with relief. I looked down at the crystal, its light soft and warm now. We did. As we sailed back toward the village, I couldn't help but wonder what the crystal truly was. Its power had saved us, but it also felt like it had changed me. Like a part of the island's magic now lived inside me. "You're quiet," Aaron said, glancing at me. "Just thinking," I said softly. "About what?" "About how much bigger the world is than I ever imagined," I said, meeting his gaze. "And how lucky I am to have someone like you by my side." Aaron smiled, a warmth in his eyes that made my heart ache in the best way. "Well, I couldn't let you have all the fun, could I?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in days. Whatever lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning of our adventures. If you enjoyed this story and want to know what happens next, make sure to like the video and type "next" in the comments. If you liked my story, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next story.